All right, so here in 43 it says, now the famine was still severe in the land. So when Jacob's sons had eaten all the grain they brought from Egypt, their father said to them, go back and buy us a little more food. But Judah replied, the man solemnly warned us, you will not see my face again unless your brother is with you. And if you will send our brother with us, we will go down and buy food for you. But if you will not send him, we will not go. For the man told us, you will not see my face again unless your brother is with you. Why did you bring this trouble upon me? Israel asked. Why did you tell the man you had another brother? And they replied, the man questioned us in detail about ourselves and our families. Is your father still alive? Do you have another brother? And we answered him accordingly. How could we possibly know that he would say, bring your brother here? And Judah said to his father Israel, send the boy with me. We will go at once so that we may live and not die, neither we nor you nor our children. I will guarantee his safety. You may hold me personally responsible if I do not bring him back and set him before you. Then may I bear the guilt before you all my life. If we had not delayed, we could have come and gone twice by now. Then their father Israel said to them, it must be so, then do this. Put some of the best products of the land in your packs, carry them down as a gift for the man, a little balm and a little honey, spices and myrrh, pistachios and almonds. Take double the silver with you so that you may return the silver that was put back into the mouths of your sacks. Perhaps it was a mistake. Take your brother as well and return to the man at once. May God Almighty grant you mercy before the man, that he may release your other brother along with Benjamin. As for me, if I am bereaved, I am bereaved. So the men took these gifts, along with double amount of the silver, and Benjamin as well. Then they hurried down to Egypt and stood before Joseph. When Joseph saw Benjamin with his brothers, he said to the steward of his house, take these men to my house, slaughter an animal and prepare it, for they shall dine with me at noon. The man did as Joseph had commanded and took the brothers to Joseph's house. But the brothers were frightened that they had been taken to Joseph's house. We have been brought here because of the silver that was returned in our bags the first time, they said. They intended to overpower us and take us as slaves along with our donkeys. So they approached Joseph's steward and spoke to him at the entrance to the house. Please, sir, they said, we really did come down here for the first time to buy food. But when we came to the place we lodged for the night, we opened our sacks, and behold, each of us found his silver in the mouth of his sack. It was the full amount of our silver, and we had brought it back with us. We have brought additional silver with us to buy food. We do not know who put our silver in our sacks. It is fine, said the stewardess. Do not be afraid. Your God, the God of your father, gave you the treasure that was in your sacks. I received your silver. Then he brought Simeon out to them. And the steward took the men into Joseph's house, gave them water to wash their feet, and provided food for the donkeys. Since the brothers had been told that they were going to eat a meal there, they prepared their gift for Joseph's arrival at noon. When Joseph came home, they presented him with the gifts they had brought, and they bowed to the ground before him. He asked if they were well, and then he asked, how is your elderly father you told me about? Is he still alive? Your servant, our father, is well, they answered. He is still alive. And they bowed down to honor him. When Joseph looked up and saw his brother Benjamin, his own mother's son, he asked, is this your youngest brother, the one you told me about? Then he declared, may God be gracious to you, my son. Joseph hurried out because he was moved to tears for his brother, and he went to a private room to weep. Then he washed his face and came back out, regained his composure. He said, serve the meal. They separately served Joseph, his brothers, and the Egyptians. They ate separately because the Egyptians would not eat it with the Hebrews, since that was detestable to them. They were seated before Joseph in order by age, from the firstborn to the youngest, and the men looked at one another in astonishment. When the portions were served to them from Joseph's table, Benjamin's portion was 5 times larger than any of the others. So they feasted and drank freely with Joseph.
Come and buy milk and wine without money.
That's just such a beautiful parallel, right? Righteous stewardship, righteous governance. And he's like, hey, yes, it's for sale, but if you need it, come and take it for free. What do you guys think about this chapter? So much good stuff in here.
I love that they go to Joseph, right? And Jacob tells them to bring gifts, right? They bring some bar nuts, it looks like, right? Pistachios, almonds, a little balm. But wait, there's myrrh, right? It also says an aromatic gum. And I was like, what is this? Some juicy fruit or some bubblicious? But I pondered the symbology, right, that parallels with Yeshua, and I thought to look up frankincense, and frankincense is actually an aromatic resin used in incense and perfumes, a hardened gum-like material that comes from the trunk of boswellia tree. So the aromatic gum could have been frankincense.
Interesting. Nice.
Yes.
So what were the 3 gifts that that Jesus was received? Gold, frankincense, and myrrh?
And they bring money, an aromatic gum, and myrrh.
And in the book of Jubilees, it actually says instead of silver, it says they had gold with them in their sacks.
I can't imagine. One of the things I love is when they says that they were ordered from oldest to youngest. Like their brains had to be going, what the heck is going on here at
How does
that
he
moment?
know, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting. Especially that means they're smart enough to notice something like that. You know, like they have a sense of self-awareness of like, wait a minute, this can't be a coincidence. Like we're all ordered properly from our date of birth. Like this is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, let's just look at some of the other things in here that may have stood out to us. My thought was their paranoia. That's what kind of stuck out to me. So when they get to his house, they're like, "Oh, they're just going to rob us and take our donkeys." And you're like, "Bro, this dude has his own donkeys. He doesn't need your donkeys. Like this is you're sitting here with the vice president of all of Egypt, the most powerful nation in the world." And even before the famine, they were one of the most powerful nations. Now they definitely are the most powerful nation because of what's going on with Joseph's plan for this famine. All the nations are coming to them and giving them their wealth for this grain. So like, they don't need your donkeys, bro. Like you're okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One of the things, kind of going back to the beginning of the chapter, that I wonder, when Jacob is like, "We need food," they're like, "You know what we got to do if we want us to get food. So you tell us when, and we're happy to go. But we ain't going down there unless you got Benjamin with us." I just wonder how many times like he's like, "Go get some food." Negative. Not until we have Benjamin. All right. Well, you ain't doing that. Well, we need food. Yeah, we know. Can we take Benjamin? Nah, never mind. Right? Like I'm sure that conversation happened a handful of times.
Yeah, it was clearly they delayed an entire year. Like I said, they could have went and came back twice, and so I was. I mean, clearly Jacob is really struggling with this. The other guys, I mean, it was just like, all right, and nobody cares that Simeon's in prison. So I don't know what his personality was like, but they're like, we get some more food next month. Are we really out yet? Look at the reserves. Are we really out yet? Like we can wait. We can wait. And they're like, we're running out of food, or even our grandchildren are going to die. We need to go back down there. And no one's mentioning we need to go get Simeon out. So he must be quite the character. But did you guys notice that in this verse here, in verse 23, the steward of Joseph's house, in response to them being afraid and trying to like over explain themselves about the silver that they found in their sacks, they're like, look, we brought that silver plus more silver back. Like it must have been a mistake. You guys gave us the silver back. And the steward's like, do not be afraid. Your God, the God of your father, gave you the treasure that was in your sacks. I received your silver. So like he's saying, no, I saw your money the first time. It was put back in there intentionally. And your God gave you that. So like, is Joseph teaching his servants about Yahweh? Is this guy showing a sense of respect to knowing that these brothers also serve the same God that Joseph serves? It's very interesting language coming from an Egyptian servant in the household of Joseph.
It is, yeah. Why would he say that like that? He could have just said, yeah, Joseph told us to give it back to you.
It also seems possible. I'm just thinking, if Joseph has this amazing ability to interpret the dreams and it comes true the way that he does, I'd be willing to bet a handful of the people that were closest to him are going, we might abandon our gods that I've never seen do anything like this and pay attention to what Joseph's talking about over here. So I'd be willing to bet he had a handful of people, if not more than a handful, that were actual followers of Yahweh because of just the circumstances and the events that they watched themselves.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking a gift of the Spirit. A lot of people don't realize what we're reading here with Joseph being able to interpret these dreams, but that gift of wisdom is a gift of the Spirit, guys.
Mm-hmm.
It's talked about in 1 Corinthians. So people ask, well, the gifts of the Spirit, only happened after Yeshua in Acts 2. Nope. Here's one right here in the life of Joseph. It literally propelled him to a position of place, power, and prominence, and allowed him to save, all the known world at the time. As he tells later in other chapters, he was sent ahead of them for such a time as this to help, save these people. And that only happened because the Father had a gift of the Spirit flowing through Joseph to interpret these dreams. And yes, that is an evangelistic tool that brings people to the goodness of God.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, to me, if he's trying to tell Potiphar's wife, who's trying to get in his pants, if he's trying to tell her about the goodness of God and about the laws of the Most High and everything, knowing that she's threatening to kill him, he's definitely telling the servants under his charge about the goodness of God and the laws of God.
And exemplifying it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You probably could not get away from Joseph. Joseph, what do you want to talk about? Well, I could talk about the goodness of God right now. Yeah. Okay. Well, I was wondering if you want to talk about something else. I mean, that's all I want to talk about.
they're like, but I wanted to talk about Bast and how he went to the underworld and fought the 12 demons. And he's like, no. We're going to talk about the goodness of God. Let me explain to you this idea about, actually, we're going to see that next week's portion as he continues to fulfill this plan of the grain collection and dispersion as the famine gets more severe in the latter years of that 7 years of famine. He uses the law of God, unlike any other opportunity we've seen in the Bible, in order for this plan to actually work. So we'll talk about that more next week. But yeah, he listened. All right. So from age 0 to 17, he's with Jacob in the household of Jacob in the land of Canaan. And so whatever he was taught at that time, he definitely listened, because he's using these principles in his adult life, being away from that influence in the heart of one of the most occultic nations of all of history. So train up a child the way she go, man. That verse is really coming into full effect here.
Absolutely. It is interesting, though. I've commented many times, I've got a younger brother and a younger sister, how different we all are growing up with the same parents. And we see the same thing, too. You got these 12 brothers that are quite different, all coming from, I guess actually they weren't the same parents, but still the same relatively similar household, the same father, right? The same person that would have been teaching righteousness and the law and everything. And yet they all turned out so different. I always find that fascinating.
Yeah, because look at the character here with Joseph, and then what we've already been talking about with Gad and Simeon. They really struggled. Later on in their life, they repented and developed good and righteous character, but in their younger years, boy, these guys were a nuisance. They did not have the same propensity to do the ways of Yahweh like Joseph did. So it's very interesting. Or like Levi, right? Levi was another great example of a completely opposite personality within these group of brothers that did what was right. So
I can relate. I was a nuisance when I was younger too.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Yes.
I caused some problems, that's for sure. Not proud of that one.
So here in Genesis 43, we read the idea that they were still needing grain. Judah and Jacob bickered about the return to Egypt and whether or not they will take Benjamin with them. Judah also guaranteed Benjamin's safety to his father Jacob. Judah reminded Jacob that his delaying had cost them 2 round trips. The brothers set off to Egypt again with gifts, twice as much silver, and Benjamin. And when the brothers arrived in Egypt, they were taken to Joseph's personal house, which that's kind of a unique thing, right? That they weren't, and this is why they kept saying, Judah kept telling Jacob and reminding him, look, the man said we will not see him again unless we bring Benjamin with us. Earlier in chapter 41, I believe, it says that Joseph was set in charge to sell to the people. So when all the different people from the different nations would come through, they were funneled into a final place of standing before Joseph to buy their grain for their people's lands or governments. So he was personally overseeing the dispersion of this for the most part. As far as the royal treasuries, we're going to read in the next chapter, I believe it is, that the people themselves of Egypt saw what Joseph was doing and mimicked his behavior and started to develop their own household treasuries. But as far as the Egyptian royal treasuries, he was personally overseeing all the transactions of people buying that grain. So that's why Judah kept saying, look, we can't go buy grain because we have to go to Joseph. We can't go to some other person in Egypt to buy grain. And so, yeah, that's why they were surprised when not only did they get to go see Joseph, but his personal house, which was kind of rare. So they tried to explain about finding the silver in their satchels to the house steward, but the steward told them not to fear. Simeon was released to the brothers after this long period of time. And when Joseph arrived, the brothers presented their gifts and bowed down to him. Guys, this is the fulfillment of Joseph's dream when he was 17, from 20 years earlier, right? And then it says that Joseph prepared a meal for them and sat them at the table by order of their birth. Benjamin was given a greater portion of food than the rest. Heard a lot of different interpretations on why Benjamin was given the greater portion of food. I honestly don't know. What do you guys think?
It's not because he was a ravenous wolf, as people like to misquote or out of context quote.
I think it was just another sign for them to be like, what the heck? Why would Benjamin? Because Benjamin's, again, unique. Benjamin is actual Joseph's full brother. And so just in my mind, it's just one more thing of like, what the heck's going on here? How come he gets that much more than us?
You mean like he was trying to like give him a subtle hint?
Yeah, because I'd be willing to bet. I mean, I don't know how old Benjamin was when Joseph was sold, but he probably was not old enough to partake in the event of, his selling into slavery. And so there probably was a different level of affection, maybe just because he was his brother, or because maybe he didn't really know him that well. I don't know, but there's like a certain level of affection, it seems like.
Yeah, Benjamin definitely seemed to be fond of him, especially in his testament, right? Testament of Benjamin 3 says, "Do you also, therefore, my children, love the Lord of heaven and earth and keep his commandments, following the example of the good and holy man Joseph?" He goes on to say, "For if anyone does violence to a holy man, he repents, for the holy man is merciful to his reviler and hides his peace. And if anyone betrays a righteous man, the righteous man prays, though for a little bit he's humbled, yet not long after that he appears more glorious, as was Joseph, my brother." So yeah, he was fond of him. Had some kind
pretty
words
awesome.
to say about him.
Pretty awesome.